Hi everyone, here's the Bookchemist once again, and today I'm reviewing Mouse by Art Spiegelman, the award-winning, Pulitzer-winning graphic novel, a book I have been recommended countless times, and one of the most depressing books I've read in a long time. And of course this is a book about the Holocaust, so what else would you expect? But also, not really, not necessarily. My favorite Holocaust narrative is probably a movie called Train de Vie, a French-Romanian movie. I think the English title is Train for Life or Train to Live. And that's hilarious. It's a side-splitting movie. Or think about La Vita è Bella, Life is Beautiful by Roberto Benigni, another very fun movie about the Holocaust. Mouse, though, although it's not without its humor, is a completely different thing, and the Holocaust is only one of the many depressing things in here. This is, of course, a book about Art Spiegelman's father's experience of the Holocaust, direct experience of Auschwitz, but it's also a book about a father-son relationship, about these two men who can't really understand and appreciate each other. And it's also a book about the nature and the value of storytelling. It's a book that asks such depressing questions such as, are we right talking about the Holocaust and telling stories about the Holocaust? Are we exploiting such a huge tragedy just to achieve some narrative ends, just to stir some emotions? And even if we justify ourselves by saying that it's good that people know and are aware of what happened in Europe in the 40s, even then, are we, is that good, really? Because on the one hand, people never quite learn from history, that's like a given. And on the other hand, can people really think they might understand Auschwitz through a story? Can anyone really hope to understand such a thing as the Holocaust? The book leaves many of these questions unanswered, although it gives a few replies and it makes a few points here and there, very crucial points. One of the great things about this project, about the way it is illustrated, about Spiegelman's idea to, turn people of different ethnicities into animals, so that Jews are mice and Germans are cats, Americans are dogs, I think white Americans are dogs, and so on. The genius thing about that is that, of course, it adds an allegorical level to the whole book, but even more than that, it makes this story abstract in a certain way. The pages of the book, I don't know if you can see them, are crammed with things, with lines of dialogues and drawings, and the book is mostly made of very small panels, although you also get lots of details. And the genius thing about this way of representing people is that these mice, they are granted facial expressions, they can express despair, they can express happiness, but they are also limited in the way they express their feelings, because they are stylized mice. And how else can you possibly hope to represent something as the Holocaust? How could you possibly represent the kind of suffering that was involved in the whole process? And by abstracting this whole idea and by representing it through this stylized character, Spiegelman found one possible way of making people understand even just the first thing about that kind of tragedy and about its magnitude. The book is, of course, as brutally honest and as impossibly disturbing as any Holocaust narrative can help but be, but at the same time it never indulges in the most morbid or terrible details of the whole event of the whole Holocaust, because of course this book is very conscious about that idea I mentioned, the idea that when you talk about the Holocaust, in a certain way you are exploiting the suffering of people, the death of countless people. As I mentioned, there's humor in here, especially in the frame narrative, in which you get the story of how Art Spiegelman and his father discussed the Holocaust, and his father told him the story of what happened to him and to his mother during the 1930s and 1940s. But even that humor, you can only occasionally you can really indulge in it, because immediately in the span of a few panels you get another terrible moment. You get the son getting mad at his father for some silly thing he did. You get his father almost getting a heart attack for another silly reason, or you're back in the 1930s with the story of the Holocaust. This is a book that allows you very rarely and almost never to relax and to enjoy the small things, and that's the whole point of the thing, I think. The great tragedy of Maus is that it shows how the Holocaust is such an impossibly large historical tragedy that it dominates all other kinds of stories. Sometimes the most heartbreaking passages in these books, I think, are not those about the Holocaust. Even more tragic than that is the passages where the father would just like to talk with Art Spiegelman, would just like to talk about, I don't know, his pills, about why he likes to go to this hotel or that hotel, or why he likes to be in New York instead of Florida. But instead, all the narrator, all Art Spiegelman wants is the story of the Holocaust. He wants to know more about what happened in Auschwitz and what happened in Germany and in Poland. In this sense, the Holocaust dominates all other kinds of stories. And like, it makes it impossible for the main character, for Art Spiegelman's father, to have a narrative outside of it. Art Spiegelman's character in the book is also highly aware of that, and there are some beautiful metafictional moments in here. Some of these are kinda subtle, some of these are very overt, but they never get like annoying, they never disrupt the narrative flow too much, and the book alternates beautifully between these moments, the frame narrative, the some occasional intermissions between the actual story of the Holocaust. It has a beautiful pace. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the book makes a few very important points, even though it leaves many of its difficult questions unanswered, and the most crucial among these points is its defense of storytelling as a human need. At one point, Art Spiegelman's character reflects on something Beckett said. Beckett said something like, words are an insult to silence, and we should make do without them. But Spiegelman reflects, well, he had to say that in order to express the thought. And that's the whole point. Storytelling is not something you do, it's not a means to an end, it's a basic human need. And that's why we need Holocaust stories, even though maybe they don't achieve anything, maybe they won't teach the world about the horrors humans can do, maybe sometimes they can appear a cheap way of exploiting an historical tragedy. But that's a basic human need, that of telling things that happened. And how can you resist the need to tell something as immense in its horror, such as the Holocaust? That will mean adding yet another tragedy to a huge, vast collection of personal and historical tragedies. And that's why telling stories about the Holocaust nowadays is not some kind of grand mission we should try to achieve, it's the least we can do, really. There is one thing about the book that didn't convince me too much at first, which is its ending. I thought it had too much of an abrupt ending. But after thinking about it, I do think it's a great ending for two reasons. On the one hand, because the book in general never dwells too long on its most disturbing or emotional or upsetting passages. Spiegelman, as he explains in the narrative, is against this kind of treatment of the Holocaust, which exploits its most emotional elements for the sake of storytelling. On the other hand, the narrative, the ending, adds a level of mystery to the story. I'm not going to spoil anything, but basically the protagonist ends the story by telling you, after the Holocaust, everything was well. And what you've gathered throughout the book, here and there, makes you wonder, was it really? Was everything well? Are you sure? And that's a question that you'll have to answer yourself, and it's a question that will stay with you long after you've finished Maus. That's my review of this amazing graphic novel. People who know more than me about comic books will probably be able to tell you cleverer things about its drawings, about its style, and its handling of panels and such. What I can tell you is that it's a beautiful reflection on storytelling, it's one of the best Holocaust narratives I've ever read, and it's a great narrative everyone should read and should know. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know what you think about Maus and about the rest of Art Spiegelman's works. I don't know the rest of his production at all. I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.